want to go to the party. Hi, it's Alexander. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we will be doing some pattern adjustments. That's right, I'm going to be showing you how I do quick and easy pattern adjustments with this Kwik Sew pattern K3883. And I'll be using view B, a short sleeve shirt. For this project, not only will you need a pattern and something you're going to be tracing onto, you may also want to pick up I guess it's called a tailor's ruler. This is called a styling design ruler by Duritz. It's sort of shaped like this, gives you curves. You could also use French curves if you have those at home. I am going to show you a few areas that I make adjustments to in my pattern when sewing. I am between two pattern sizes, usually the large to extra large. Extra large in the shoulders, large in the tummy area. So what I normally do is cut everything out in the larger pattern size, the XL. The length. I'm 6'1", so sometimes shirt patterns aren't long enough for me. I will also show you how to take less bulk or less flounciness out of the sleeves. And I'll show you how to do a slimmer fit by adjusting and nipping in the waist. These are the three areas I normally adjust. These are also quick adjustments. They're not by any means proper adjustments. They're more for the home sewist. If you are a professional tailor, I am sorry, but this is just how I do things. I will say this. First things first, the way I do pattern adjustments is I take the time and trace the pattern out. I trace the pattern out on tracing fabric, tracing material. In this case, I'm using a Pellon tracing material. I think it actually is called Pellon Easy Pattern Tracing Fabric. Pellon number 830. And you can get it in big bolts like this. I'll see if I can get it better. It's sort of a pressed woven material. You can sew on it, you can draw on it, you can tape it together. You can probably find it at your local sewing stores. That is what I'm going to use to trace my pattern on. A lot of my sort of tips and tricks on how I do pattern adjustments really depends on this. It doesn't have to if you are using tracing paper, if you are using butcher's paper or anything else like that. The tips here I'm showing still work. It just might take a little longer. So the first thing I do is take all of this, iron it flat, because you will need to iron your tracing material. You will also need to iron your pattern. I know that sounds counterintuitive because it is paper you're ironing, but it does make the difference. Iron your pattern. When tracing out your pattern, make sure you put all the relevant information onto the traced out pieces. Size, location of darts, notches, anything of that nature. You need to put those on for reference later. So once we have everything traced out and everything cut out, it's time to add the seam allowances. Yes, this is a must. You need to add the seam allowances to your cut out pattern pieces. This pattern calls for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Sorry, I only have the imperial seam allowance. Metric, please convert. So once we have the pattern pieces cut out, in this case, the right front shirt panel, we are going to our sewing machine and we are going to sew literally a 1/4 inch seam all the way around. I use about a 2.5 stitch for this. Let's go do that now. Here I am doing the seam allowance, sewing slowly around each and every curve to make sure that the seam allowance is consistent. You may wish to use a seam guide like I have. Mine is magnetic. And here we go. I have stitched the seam allowance all the way around, in this case, on this front panel piece of the shirt. As you can see, it's a 1/4 inch all the way around. As you may have seen with my cutouts, I did 2 fronts. Normally most patterns, you just cut the one out. I always do two, just in case if I need to do pattern matching. Ooh, if you want to see me do a video on pattern matching, please comment below. I'll do a video on pattern matching. I'm going to start here on the front panel piece. Right along where my finger is the lengthened line that you would normally see on most patterns. Make sure that you drew that on when you were tracing your pattern. I've decided to lengthen mine by 2 inches. So I've cut an extra strip of my tracing material 2.5 inches. So what you are going to do is literally cut along that lengthened line. And once cut, this is what it looks like. As you can see, I sewed that extra 2.5 inch strip into the front panel piece. Using my tailor's ruler, I'm just going to trim off the excess. If you do not have a tailor's ruler, you can do this by sight. Now we just need to mark where the waist is. The waist would be the top section of the piece you sewed in. What you do for one means you have to do the others. So the other front, the back, and the button placket. Repeat for all of these. I'm going to be working on this front panel piece. Here we are. Where I am pointing is the waist of the shirt, and now we have to determine how much we want to take it in. For this method, I would not do anything more than 1 inch. Anything more than that would require much more math. Boo. I am going to be taking in each panel 1/2 inch. And you are going to repeat this process for the back panel and the other front panel. As you can see, I have 2 markings. One 1/2 inch from the side of the shirt, and the next one would be the 1/4 inch, which we need to make our new seam allowance to. What I'm doing is lining that first line right into the corner. Now I need to connect these dots. As you can see here, just drawing one nice curved line, generally following the current curve of the shirt. This is why a tailor's ruler works best. And there is the new edge of the shirt. Now you need to trim along that line. This will be the new edge of your shirt. Then once that's finished, take it to the sewing machine and add the seam allowance. And there you go. Now we have it trimmed and the seam allowance nicely stitched. As you can see in that corner where the old seam allowance was and where the new seam allowance was. We never touched the actual corners. Now you're going to do the same thing for the back of the shirt as well as the other front panel. The other front panel, you can just lay this new panel on top and then trim. This back panel, as you can see, now fits with the new front panel. And there we go. As you've seen, we create a slimmer fit for the bodice. Now, let's take out some of the flounciness from a sleeve. There, as you've seen, I darkened the lengthened line. If you want to lengthen the sleeve or anything like that, you need to do that first. Now we need to fold the pattern piece in half, making sure to line up the edges appropriately. Finger press in place. Now draw a line on that finger pressed area. This creates our center point as shown. Now we need to draw some lines from that center point right to the first set of notches, then again diagonally from those sets of notches right through that center point. Now from the corner through that center point, and as you guessed, you're going to need to do this for the other corner right through the center point. And this is what we have. These are all lines that you will need to use for reference points later. Now, we need to start cutting some of these lines. As you can see, I'm lining up my ruler there with my rotary cutter and going right up to that point. Next, the same thing on the other side, and repeat and repeat. Making sure you do not go through the seam allowance. Do not go through the seam allowance. You need to make sure there is a pivot point. Once everything is cut, this is what it should look like. Again, with this method, I would not go above maybe an inch, inch and a half. Here, I'm doing an inch and a half I'm removing from the sleeve. Now, we have to move these pieces up to meet that line. As you can see here, gently, I am maneuvering in an origami-like fashion to that point, as you can see. Because we didn't cut into the seam allowance, these are your pivot points. So make sure you get everything flat. Go slowly if you need to, just making sure all the panel pieces match in the center as shown. Now is the time you get out some cello tape and you tape all that down like no tomorrow. Tape it down, girl. Once everything is taped down, you can see the new hem of the sleeve is a bit weird. We need to add a section to the bottom of that with some of your old tracing material. And here I am doing that, trimming, taping, and making sure it's all level. Notice how the sleeve structure is still the same. We haven't actually changed the dimensions of the sleeve, just taken some bulk out. So, there you have it. There's a few simple and easy ways to adjust a pattern to fit you. I hope you liked this video. Please comment below, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you can get notified when my next videos come out. Bye now.